Well, we're joined by Paul Goldsmith, author of How to Lose a Referendum, the definitive story of why the UK voted for Brexit. Good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, there is a possibility in all of this, isn't there, that we may look back in 50 or 100 years and see this as the golden era of British politics.
Well, certainly that's what's happening at the school I teach at. Kids coming into my office, teachers coming into my office to ask what's going on. But I think how historians view this era could probably be boiled down into three areas. One, I think they'll condemn David Cameron. Two, I think they might look back as this era is the time when the disconnect between what voters wanted and needed grew, between what they wanted and needed and what political parties could provide through policies. But three, depending on how this crisis is resolved, it could be the time when the people lost faith in politics' ability to resolve conflicts.
They do say history repeats itself. Is there anything in the past that we can equate to what is happening now? Anything, any precedent at all?
Well, it's interesting because Suez, which was mentioned by Kate in her piece, Suez was a failure of leadership. The cabinet didn't even know Suez was happening because Anthony Eden shredded any notes from the meetings that he had. But the political parties were still serving the interests of the voters. Labour represented the working class, Conservatives represented, I suppose, the ruling class, and they were responding very well to these people who believed in them. That's not necessarily happening now.
So in that sense, then, what do you see as the disconnect? Is the disconnect that politicians aren't delivering on the referendum, or is it that the country... Because the country is split still, and the politicians seem to be split still.
I mean, the splits are astonishing. The political parties are bursting at the seams with almost irreconcilable factions. And one thing that could happen are actual splits, one to the right and perhaps some Labour towards the centre. Maybe we'll have more coalitions. But I think the referendum itself was the result of the disconnect that happened, starting in about 1979 with what happened to the many communities around the country who were sort of abandoned when the mines were closed. But also in 2000, globalisation, immigration, people's worries. Globalisation creates winners and it creates losers. But the losers were sort of told, you're lazy, racist bigots, and we're not interested in you. And then extremists sort of stepped into the breach and presented, well, we've got an answer, let's have this referendum.
But is that a fair analysis in the sense that there are a lot of political historians that look back at, you know, the Thatcher government from 79 onwards and say, although, you know, hugely unpopular, both through a lot of the sort of economic actions that were taken, but now look back at that with, you know, with the sort of the benefit of hindsight and say this actually put the country back on the road to economic success.
And that's interesting because I think one of the crises that was missed out in the piece you just showed was the winter of discontent in 1978. We were called the sick man of Europe. We were going to the International Monetary Fund for a loan. We had garbage piling up on the streets of Leicester Square and things like that. Margaret Thatcher, though, had a large majority. She knew what she wanted to do. She was able to deliver it, whether we like it or not. David Cameron, however, if I said to you 8 years ago, someone's going to come along, call a referendum with no intention of delivering one of the results, didn't prepare for one of the results, resigned when that result happened, leaving a government to deliver a policy it didn't believe in, with incomplete instruction from the electorate, you might have said, what kind of banana republic are we in? And when historians judge Theresa May, they need to consider the poison chalice she was handed. But Theresa May, with her time, well, when she lost a majority in 2017, she certainly played a bad hand badly.
Are we seeing a redefining of politics? Are we on the cusp of that? Are we going to see new parties emerging?
I think so. I think that the people on the right of the Conservative Party are not really conservative. They're saying there's nothing to lose from, there's nothing to be afraid of with no deal. They're saying let's break this and see what happens. That's not necessarily conservative. Maybe they could be part of a new KIP, a new UKIP. People in the Labour Party on the Blairite wing, they're more centrist. They believe in accommodating capitalism. Maybe they'd be better off in a centrist party. But then people have to get used to coalitions running the country then, because under our current electoral system, it favours the big parties a lot more than a lot of little ones. So we could have politics redefined, yes.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, one thing we can agree on, Paul, is that we're going to look back at this with a lot of interest. That's for sure. Good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.